And what's up, guys? Welcome to our first episode of our podcast, Eco Friends. I wanted just to start this off by introducing everyone. My name is Thomas Romero. I've been living here in the state of Florida, actually South Florida, for the past 15 years. Um, Climate change is something that I've been actually really passionate about since my freshman year in high school because I definitely started seeing the effects of it on our beaches, on our lakes, and whatnot, and it's something that I really took interest in.
Hi, my name is Lydia. I am originally from the Panhandle of Florida, but I recently moved down to Miami to do school. And climate change is a little bit of a newer issue for me, but I'm excited that we get to talk about it today.
Hi, I'm Gabby. I've been in Miami my whole life, and for like the past year, I've been more passionate towards climate change. So I'm interested in this topic.
Hi, I'm Robert. I've been born and raised in Florida. I've been in Miami for a while, and I've been quite the researcher in climate change, and I'm quite interested in discussing it and diving deep into it today.
All right, guys, so let's get straight into it. Something that we definitely need to kind of clear the air on is what climate change actually is. I don't know if you guys picked up on that pun of we need to clear the air, but I hope you guys did. So first things first, climate change is a natural process of fluctuating weather for different seasons or time period. This change normally brings heat or cold, depending on what the climate adapts to for its current season. Obviously, if it's summer, if we're lucky, we won't get as much heat, but typically we do get more heat. And if it's winter, we won't get such an elongated winter. This can occur naturally depending on the distance between the Earth and Sun, but sometimes it can be a human-made problem.
It can. It's overall over these decades, we've seen a big rise in just human man-made problems. And one of the big things is the burning of fossil fuels. We've seen that when we go out to burn these fossil fuels and produce like all of this energy, we've seen that it releases certain greenhouse gases like nitrogen oxides. It releases it into the atmosphere and it depletes at our ozone layer. And this depletion it raises the heat and like how hot the air is over time. And this change in heat in the atmosphere leads to an immense amount of problems, including more natural disasters and just terrible events for poor ecosystems.
And the past 5 years have been the warmest in human history. And there's people that speculate that climate change isn't real or it's not like a human interference that's making it happen. But the 20th warmest years started in 1880, and that was the peak of the second industrial revolution. And it's not really a coincidence that the same year that we're overproducing, manufacturing, and we have all this smoke in the air is when the climate started getting warmer. And then it's just been getting worse since then.
You think, Gabby, do you think that people calling climate change a hoax is something like that started it's something relatively new, or do you think it's something that's definitely been carrying on for like 15 plus years?
Well, climate change became like a bigger widespread issue in the 90s. That's like when people started talking about it. And think about it, we're 30 years later and there's still people saying, oh no, but look, we made it this far. And it's like that idea that, oh yeah, since we made it this far, it's not real, is very damaging and ignorant because we see the visual like issues now with hurricanes and rising sea level. Like it's real. We have the effects here. So ignoring it is very selfish, ignorant. It's just, we need to address it as it is.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, one thing we want to touch on, sorry, Thomas, is we're not naive to the fact that there are like other everyday problems that everyone is facing that is really maybe not on everyone's most prioritized list. But the important thing is that there is a sense of urgency here. If there is an action taken, like soon, very soon, there will be lasting effects. So that is definitely one of the reasons we're excited to be able to talk about it.
Right,
you
definitely. No, yeah, definitely, I agree. But Lydia, if you don't mind, before we touch up on these dire consequences that hopefully we won't have to face. Robert, would you mind because I know you did some research on some of the pros and cons of energy sources, especially here in the state of Florida?
Yes, I did. So we all know about various, power plants that bring us our energy. And one that's actually close to us is a nuclear power plant nearby by Turkey Point. Now, normally this wouldn't be so bad. right? It's just an energy power plant. It's just, providing electricity that we need. But the problem is it releases a lot of pollutants, and some of those pollutants are those greenhouse gases, and that's one of the things that depletes at our ozone layer, as well as just contaminating water. That's another problem with it. And when this excessive amount of gases are put into the atmosphere, it does deplete away at very important gases of its own in our atmosphere. However, we've seen that power plants, or just solar panels, produce a lot more cleaner energy, and it's a lot more environmentally friendly because it's not bringing out pollutants that are just eating away at important gases that we need to keep the temperature down.
Actually, Robert, so now that you mentioned that nuclear power plant, I think it was in Turkey Point, right? Yeah, I'm almost positive.
Yeah.
Right. So that's been opened since the 1970s. Actually, that opened on 1970. It's definitely something very interesting because it is a very, very large power plant. I'm looking at it right now. Actually, it is a 3,300 acre site. It's actually 2 miles east of Homestead, Florida. So it's actually very interesting because, like you said, I mean, despite it, I mean, not despite, but one thing is already causing a lot of pollutants and waste because of it being a nuclear power plant. But another thing is being a 3,300 acre nuclear power plant. Like, I can't even begin to imagine the amount of waste that thing produces. I mean, that cannot be good for the environment.
Yeah.
It's quite troubling. It's to think that it's just a big, massive problem, and it's just continuing on a downward spiral towards just destroying more of what we need.
Right. I mean, especially for, I mean, it's been running for not almost, but actually 50 years it's been running. I mean, you figure that this pollution's like, it would, I mean, at least start reducing, but it's something that's nonstop.
So that being said, what Robert was saying about nuclear energy and how damaging it is, one of the biggest things that we wanted to talk about in this podcast is the power of politicians and people of higher income and how they could change the situation. So we all know that the 2020 election just passed, and there's no way to go back in time to change people's perspective from beforehand, but we still want to discuss it so you can keep it in mind for the future. So Trump has been known to say that climate change is a hoax. He doesn't believe in it, and his actions reflect that. In that we had to research an organization throughout this semester called Earth Justice, and they filed multiple lawsuits on Trump for breaking federal law against the environment. So his actions and his words go hand in hand. And then looking locally, we have Ron DeSantis, who is our governor, who supports and is supported by Trump. And one of the things that DeSantis was going on about in his first year of administration in 2018 was that he wanted Florida to get greener. And that's kind of contradictory when you're being supported and support a man who breaks federal law against the environment and is endorsed by oil and gas industries. Does anyone have any comments?
No, yeah, definitely one of the things that I remember about listening to Ron DeSantis' campaign when he was running for governor. Yes, he is very heavily endorsed by Trump. There's nothing wrong with that, but my complaint, at least, is the fact that he's very far right when it comes to climate change and environmental aspects. As a matter of fact, I know that a lot of Republican analysts would describe Ron DeSantis as the type of person who, if one tree is cut down, he will just focus on the other millions of trees left over, but he doesn't really focus. He focuses on the bigger picture instead of the small details in the picture. So yeah, that's my personal issue, I guess you could say, with him.
And you're totally right about him being far right. And he's kind of money driven in that one of the statements from 2018, he said that let's let the market decide if solar will be profitable, basically. And it's like, that's not the approach you should be taking when climate change is this dire. I mean, in 2018, it was already pretty prevalent around people around the globe that this is a big issue. And the fact that he kind of addressed it like that wasn't really good. And then we also saw this thing from the Sierra Club, which is an environmentalist group. And they had gave him a D for their environmental report card because they were saying that he lacked the conversion to 100% renewable energy. So him ignoring, again, renewable energy, solar panels, stuff like that. And he barely passed because they were saying that he didn't focus on the key issue, which is climate change. What he did pass, though, is for reducing plastic waste and Everglades restoration. So I'll give him that. But clearly, he needs to do more. And even someone from Sierra Club said that his actions are very superficial in that it's just all talk. So that's something that needs to be changed for sure.
I mean, without trying to critique the man, you do have to understand that at the end of the day, he is a politician. I mean, he did serve as one of Florida's representatives for almost 5 years, I think it was, 4 or 5 years. So, you know, like every other politician, he is going to try to do, you know, he's going to try to fill up on whatever he can to, you know, get him to a position. But once he gets into that position, it's very unlikely that, you know, he actually will go back to listen to the little guy. And Gabby, it's actually very funny that you mentioned that he's money driven, because one of the things that I was reading up on was the fact that he does have several properties in West Palm Beach, which is one of the more lucrative, not communities, I'm sorry, counties here in Florida. And I was reading that actually not many of his properties in West Palm Beach. I think he said it was two houses, I think it was, in West Palm Beach. None of them have implemented solar panels or anything like that. So that's how we could tell his stance on when it comes to the economy, not the economy, I'm sorry, the what was the word that you used?
The market.
The market. There we go. The market. You know, let the market decide how that's going to do. And it's funny because I know in West Palm Beach, there's actual communities that a lot of the houses do have solar panel. I mean, you like if you're a private, I'm not a private person, but if you're a person who's asking to build a house on a property, you can actually have the option of implementing solar panels. At the end of the day, that is your money. But there's a lot of people in West Palm Beach, including apartment complexes, that aren't implementing these solar panels. So it's kind of interesting how a man who has properties there just completely disregarded that idea.
Yeah. And something I wanted to mention about the solar panels is that lately they've been saying that solar panels are cheaper, not for the individual, but for power plants and for big communities. So the fact that people are still ignoring it is like, you shouldn't be doing that. You need to, if you have the privilege to invest in something like that and to help other people, you should take that initiative. And something else I wanted to say was now looking at Florida, which is somewhere that we have the rising sea level and we have like hurricanes. Then Thomas, you had mentioned before about California, how California and Florida are like big issues and they're being impacted by climate change. And yet California has put in a bunch of incentives to change things. They have action plans, they've done a bunch of stuff, but Florida barely has done anything. And it reflects how the representatives are running the state.
Yeah, I was reading up on that actually because so Florida, without beating it over the head, of course, but Florida does have a bunch of regulations and laws for big companies. I mean, not as much as California, but it definitely does have some rules and regulations there. The only difference is that California is strictly what's the word for it? It's they're carrying out these actions. If they're putting in the rules, they're making sure they're enforcing. There we go. They're definitely enforcing these rules and regulations that they put into place. Here in Florida, although we don't have as many rules, the few rules that we do have, the few regulations that we do have, they're definitely not being enforced. As we could see with this power plant in Turkey Point. Again, it's a 3,300 acre power plant. It's definitely something that can be very useful, but it's producing a lot of waste that's not really being regulated, and in turn, it's just devastating our environment and our ecosystems.
Yeah. And something I wanted to reference that Lydia made a good point, that we understand that people have other issues, especially minorities and lower income people. You have bigger issues to worry about, and that climate change probably isn't your biggest issue right now. And that's totally okay, because you need to focus on you before you can think big picture. So that kind of shows how it's more on politicians and people with higher income to focus on this issue and provide for the other people.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah,
we really need them to avoid being selfish and actually focus on us just a little bit.
That's their job. Yeah.
Robert, what do you think about all this? What's your stance on DeSantis and his take on the on how he's not just DeSantis obviously, but politicians as well as DeSantis? And what's your take on this?
I'm pretty bothered. Not gonna lie. I feel like we could do a lot more to fix these problems, and I feel like they don't really care. They don't have that initiative to really move forward and really look into what is going on. It's more of a selfish desire that they have to promote their own well-being, and they got a lot of outside help from companies that are probably not liking this whole movement. So it's a big thing of whether they will fight against this the support that they have and look more at their people rather at their wallets, and look towards bettering their community over bettering themselves. And it's a problem. It really is. A lot of politicians really don't look out for their people, and they don't look out for the people that they they represent, and it's disgusting, I think. And I'm really disappointed in what we have leading us right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, people will tend to vote for whatever makes whatever politician has the biggest impact on their in their pockets, in their wallets. But one of the things that I wanted to touch up on was the fact that so Gabby, you had mentioned how, like, especially like most recently, climate change has become a very big issue and whatnot. But a lot of people tend to argue, especially during election times, a lot of people do end up arguing about how climate change is something that only young people tend to care about and tend to focus on. But my opinion, and I don't know if you guys will share, your opinions later on, but my opinion on this is the fact that I feel like this is something that us young people, especially the young voter groups, tend to focus on a lot more, because we're trying to, stay alive on this earth. If this continues to keep going on, we're going to have to end up either switching states, switching countries. God knows what the aspects are going to be. I think we're going to touch up on that later. But yeah, we definitely have to focus on this as a younger generation, because at the end of the day, it's our future on this planet. That's why, come election time, I always tend to put information up on especially like where you can go vote. And I feel like it's actually very important for people to educate themselves about when they're going to go vote. First of all, you have to come to terms with yourself and think what's more important to you, whether it's like a monetary aspect or if it's an environmental aspect, or maybe just a little merge between the two. And you definitely need to educate yourself on what each politician stands for, because I know for a fact when my parents went to vote for our governor in Florida, they mostly just focused on I think the candidate was Andrew Gillum. They just focused on him because he was from the Democratic Party. Me, I've never been the type of person to vote for political parties. I've always been the type of person to actually vote for my interests and my beliefs. And unfortunately, neither one of these candidates, I couldn't vote at the time, but I know for a fact when I was reading up on them, none of these candidates really reassured my beliefs when it came to environmental or monetary aspects.
I definitely think that needs to be more discussed as far as voting plans, because I saw these memes where people were saying like, oh, I didn't know there was going to be other representatives on the ballot. And that needs to be addressed, because you need to go to those polls knowing who is going to be on the ballot and what they stand for. Because yes, the president obviously has a big job, but you need to look at local people, because they're going to affect you first and immediately. They can decide everything for you, bigger than what the president can do. So that's definitely something we need to bring attention towards.
Lydia, what's your take on this? I know that you're up there on the Panhandle. What's the situation like up there? Like, what's the more common beliefs and whatnot?
Definitely, yeah. I do come from a more conservative area, which is frustrating at times for actions like environmental change, because they aren't really on people's priority list up here. I will say that I have definitely seen the effects of it. I also live in a beach community, and there are virtually no fines for littering on the beach. There is an oil company that comes out and works every 2 years. And I also live in the area where the BP oil spill happened in 2009. These aren't made up things that you read about in the news. These are things that, like in my case, I didn't go to the beach for a year and a half, and I had several adult friends cleaning up the beach for a year and a half because there was real oil spilled all over my coast. And I just feel like a lot of times, true, awareness is what we want to bring to this, but change happens at the polls. So that's the reason that we have spent so much time on politicians here.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was gonna say that individual effort, like changing your diet as far as reducing your meat intake and dairy products, and reducing your waste and consumption and stuff like that, that does go a long way. But that minimizes your carbon footprint. But that doesn't do much if someone with a way bigger carbon footprint is gonna damage it for you. So we need to look higher up.
Absolutely.
Lydia, if you wouldn't mind, so I wanted to touch up on something that you said earlier. About how all this starts out at the polls, and this is something that we've been discussing a lot actually in this podcast. How do we go about this? I mean, what's your take on how we, why do we need them to support us and whatnot? What's your take on this?
Yeah, so I definitely liked what Gabby was saying earlier about how the local voting things that we go through are going to be much more influential for us than, let's say, when we're voting for a president. Obviously, that's important. But when we're voting locally, a lot of times people don't realize that even though we do have generally a Democratic and a Republican senator, that doesn't mean that either one of those are going to advocate for the change that we're looking for. So I think, I mean, we probably touched on it quite a bit about being educated about our governors and senators, but really they're not fulfilling expectations. And that's the biggest thing, is that they are the people who have been put in power to make change, and they aren't doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, we definitely have to see about, I mean, so you said about educating ourselves, and I talked about it a little bit too. As an educated voter, one of the things that we do definitely need to consider is when we go to vote, first of all, know the stance of your political person that you're going to vote for, and definitely see, it's an intuition of a human being where you could at least believe if this person will do something for your beliefs or not. One of the things that I would definitely like to see in a candidate is, try to see if they can introduce something like a cleaner power plant or whatnot. I would love for it to definitely be an idea, obviously, and this is ideally, not realistically speaking. Hopefully it'll be realistically speaking someday, but that 3,300 acre power plant in Turkey Point, I'd love to see that be transitioned from a nuclear power plant to a solar power plant or something along the lines of that. That's definitely something that candidates, I feel like I'd love to see that in a candidate, me personally. It's definitely important to change it, obviously, because we live in, Florida's nicknamed the sunny state, the sunshine state, I'm sorry. But having these large fields of solar panels definitely could produce a lot of energy, and we have to kind of we have to come together as one to be able to see, like, focus on the monetary aspects and see if over time it'll be cheaper to start producing these mass solar panel fields and whatnot. But this is something that we definitely need to start touching up on very soon, because, like I said, every year we do see the water levels rising. I think Florida right now is technically under sea level, and this has been something that's been going on for years. We definitely need to start focusing on that. Robert, what's your take on this?
It's quite odd. It's quite odd.
It's frustrating and frightening, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It is. It's not a situation to really gloss over or just be oblivious to now. It's really important to kind of start taking action. That's a big thing.
Definitely. And like Gabby said, it's one of those things where unfortunately we do see a lot of people making memes and stuff. Like, I see tons of memes, like, multiple times a day. And I just think, like, yeah, some of these are definitely funny, but at the same time, what are we doing to actually take part in this and whatnot?
Sure.
Lydia, I wanted... Exactly, yeah. Lydia, I also wanted to refer back to you. Do you see, what would you do to like raise awareness to not raise awareness, but what would you, like, for example, for your friends, for people that who vote or whatnot, what's your message towards them?
Yeah, this is definitely something that I feel like all four of us have put a lot of effort and a lot of our time into researching this topic. And, like, yes, that's great. But the reason that we're doing this project is to reach you being whoever may be.
You being the millennials of Florida. We need your help. We know that you are just as passionate as we are about certain matters like climate change. And we know that you have more of a voice and more power and authority to be able to make changes that we need happen. We know that you can help us vote people into power that are willing to actually work towards the matter of climate change instead of pretending it doesn't exist. We know that you can help us out big time when it comes to emailing senators and asking for certain changes in law. We know that you can help us take the step forward into a better tomorrow. Nobody has, like, the same drive as the millennial generation. Time and time again, we've seen how determined you guys are to just fix problems that are seem impossible sometimes. Things that just will never get fixed. But, you guys always step up the plate. And you guys are always there trying to fix things that people think are lost causes. And we need your help this time. people think climate change is a lost cause and that it's either too late or it doesn't exist. And we can't handle this anymore. We need to fix the problem while there's still time and while there are still people that are really determined to be able to put themselves out there to slowly work down that carbon footprint that we have. We know that you can help us, millennials. We know that you can help us break down this large number of carbon emissions that we produce.
The fact of the matter is we can feel as passionately as we can, and if we're not sharing that, then we're not doing anything about it. So I do want to, in a way, kind of overview what we've talked about. And the first thing is that we wanted to point out that it's no coincidence that at the same time that human interaction in the environment started being really prevalent is the same time we started seeing decline and damage in our climate and our environment. And that does give us a sense of urgency, I think, to all the people that are still trying to negate climate change and the effects we're seeing of it are going to be left behind. It's the truth. It's the reality. And if you don't believe it, then I personally feel sorry for you. Yeah, something else that we talked about was definitely that the pollutants that are coming from these huge energy plants are controlled by major corporations. And Gabby was saying that, like, their carbon footprint is not to be like exaggerated or anything, but it's way bigger than anything individuals can do, or, you know, even sometimes cities. So this will not be stopped until there's legislation enacted to stop it. And legislation starts with us. So that's definitely one of the reasons that we wanted to come on here and talk about it. I know that I love the way Robert put it when he said, I'm bothered. I just love it. Like, we're bothered that DeSantis has a slogan that says, go green, and then he votes against it. Like, we're bothered that politicians are lying to our face. Like, we're bothered about the way that people have been, you know, handling climate change since we've been creating it. Like, we're bothered about that. And we want you to be bothered about it. That's why I'm essentially yelling right now. I think it's obvious, like, through the things that we've talked about, that these people are money driven, and that long term is going to create worse damage for our environment and for our climate. We need to speak up now. We need to work and act now, because as long as the people who are money driven are in charge, it's going to continue to be about money and not about this globe. I love that we talked about the difference between kind of the legislation right now in Florida and California, and just like the ways that they've been forcing some of those things. I've seen personally where litter is not punished at all in this state. And, you know, even just throughout our research on this, we've seen that there's huge punishments for that in California. And just like a lot of other things that are the steps towards making change that we aren't seeing here in Florida. And as, you know, now voting citizens of Florida, we want to make aware, be aware, and try to make change for those sort of things. We need to be approaching our senators and governors. I know that we're honestly directing a lot of this towards ours. A lot of the things that they have done have not been reflective of the things that are going to be beneficial for the people that they're representing. So yeah, absolutely. If you're one of those people that is complacent about climate change, if you're one of those people that's just hearing it for the first time, we hope that you want to get up and you want to do something about it. We hope that you've heard what we've had to say, and it's encouraged you, it's persuaded you, and it's made you learn. But if you're one of those people that just hears this podcast and then, I don't know, chooses not to exercise your right to vote, or chooses not to make change against these huge corporations and legislations, then you are a part of the damage.
Definitely.
Exactly. At the end of the day, it's one of those things, Lydia, where it's like you said, you know, if you're going to be a politician, you're going to go into office saying one thing and then choose not to do it, especially like DeSantis saying go green and then completely ignoring that now that he's in office. It's one of the things where it's like either start focusing on the little guy or just get ready to lose your spot come next election. Because it's one of those things where, like you said, now that we're able to exercise our right to vote, it's one of those things that we're going to have to take into consideration and, you know, realize that he hasn't done anything in since he was elected as your governor. What makes us think that he's going to do something next term? So it's one of those things where, like, and it's not even just as big as governor, but let's even focusing on our representatives and our senators. Like I said, either get ready to focus on the little guy, especially on changes like this, or just get ready to lose your seat come next election, because there are people who are willing to get that seat and definitely push this message forward that something needs to be done in the state of Florida. I know as far as here in the South Florida, one of the main and only, I don't know for the rest of Florida, Lydia, hopefully you can back me up on this, but here in South Florida, one of the main things that we've seen, at least in the beachfront, is when you go to, when you go up to get a drink, it's all paper straws. Um, that's the biggest campaign that I've seen here so far, and it's quite unfortunate because I feel like, being in Florida, being in one of the largest countries in the world, most powerful countries in the world, we could definitely be doing so much more. And unfortunately, our main campaign right now is just paper straws.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Exactly. This is why. This is why we need to do something. Clearly, the people that we have in power right now don't really care at all. At all. Paper straws and the amount of time this guy has been around is kind of disgraceful for Florida. We need somebody that clearly cares and clearly wants to do something about this problem. We need somebody that's going to fight against corporate America and say, you know what, these power plants, they're not it. These nuclear plants that are clearly producing a lot of greenhouse gas and bringing it into the atmosphere, it needs to stop. And the only way we can get that is trying to get our current governor to see and understand what is going on. And we need him to fully understand that his greed will no longer matter because by how things are going, he's not going to have enough time to enjoy that money of his at all. It's that, or we the people can decide to get him out of office or vote somebody else in. Whether we go and actively message and contact our senators to producing bills that either he can choose to agree with or choose to veto, and if he chooses to actively veto it, we can always email and discuss how we feel he is using his power of a government official as misconduct. We have things that we can do, and we're not choosing to do it because we're being very, passive right now. We're being bystanders to a problem that needs people to be in charge. We need to stand up against what people are overlooking. We need to choose to understand the problem and take charge instead of pretending like it's somebody else's problem. Because it's not. It's going to affect Florida, and it's going to affect you and me. It's going to be a disaster if we stand by and watch things happen. Therefore, we need your help. We need you to really take action with us. We need you to help us choose people that are not going to pretend like the problem isn't real, that are not going to think it's too late and we were already doomed. We need people that know that it's time to finally make a change. Time to say no. No to the people that want to continue to hurt us indirectly for their own personal greed. It is time to choose people that truly care about the environment.
Yeah.
Right?
All right, guys. Well, this has been our first episode of Eco Friends. I hope that you guys can join us for our next episode. I don't know if you guys would like to say goodbye to all the people listening.
Yeah, I just want to say that I guess we hope you leave bothered, but thank you for listening to us.
Bothered but determined to do something come next elections.
But
Yeah, I really hope you guys take this to heart and you really look into the ways that you can help and the ways that you can interact with either your senators or your local politicians, and you really make an effort to actually go forward and fix this problem with us. It really,
we need to keep them in check. And that being said, the next election for governor is in 2022. It's not confirmed whether DeSantis is going to be running again, but again, that's what we've been discussing this whole podcast. Check on him, see what he's doing, see if he's actually doing something, and if not, look at another candidate who will do something.
Exactly.
Yeah, let's show them that we care by actually nailing this and actually going forward with what we want.
Exactly. And it's definitely important to keep into mind that it's not just one person or one family in the state of Florida. It's 21.5 million of us. So, if one person's not willing to do it, that's fine. And hopefully it'll be a lot more people to back us up on this. So,
yeah.
But yeah. All right, guys. Thank you for listening so much. We'll see you next episode.